So we should be set up and ready to go. So Jeff's going to lead us in prayer, and I'll kind of give you the update on some of the changes.
Give them the update first, and then I'll pray.
All right, I'll give you the update first, then Jeff will pray. So we have new audio mics. If you look right up above me, to the left and to the right, you're going to see two little big microphones. They are, there's a pocket in there somewhere. They are extremely sensitive. They're called choir mics, and so if you were the one that kept logging off and on our YouTube channel yesterday as we were testing it, you got to hear some fun conversation between me, Josh, and Daniel. So we were testing it yesterday. So no more running microphones during class. If you speak up to where people inside the building can hear you, people online should be able to hear you. So that's the hints for the tie today. So if it doesn't work, the answer is we need more power. That's why I wore my electrical tie. So we'll just carry on class as normal. And Daniel Douglas is back there in the back making some adjustments as we kind of experiment with this. And then we're going to see if it accomplishes what we want. The big advantage of it, when we get into our worship hour and we get into singing, we're going to be able to turn off these front mics to where the song leader will not be blasting over YouTube and over the stream, but these choir mics will actually should pick up congregational singing. That way you'll hear congregational singing, not the song leader. Because no matter how talented of a song leader you are, a microphone on YouTube, as loud as we sing, it's not the best sounding. So that's the hope for this. So Jeff's going to lead us in prayer. So if you have comments and we don't have a microphone anymore, just speak up to where you will want everybody to hear what you're saying. All right, Jeff, lead us in prayer.
Let's go to God in prayer. Our dear Heavenly Father, we do praise you and honor you for who you are. And we're so thankful for so many things that you've blessed us with. We're so thankful for our health and our life and the ability to be out and to study from your word this morning, to worship you and praise, and to be with our spiritual family here. Dear Heavenly Father, as we study this morning on telling others about you, help us to take that to heart and help us to have that desire within ourselves to tell others about you and about the blessings and the freedom that come through giving our lives to you and obeying you. We ask that you be with us. We ask that you be with Aaron as he leads us in this class this morning. And as we go to you in worship later on, help us to have a good worship service and help us to worship you in the way that we should. These things we pray through your son's name. Amen.
Amen. A couple other things about this. If you are in the auditorium during opening prayer, if there's times you think there are things we do that would be better with a mic, let us know. We can always use one. The plan is to not. So that's something we want some feedback. And if you're regularly online, give us some feedback. Was this a good change, bad change? What are some things you'd like to see? Also, if anybody's ever had the problem, you pull it up on your phone, you can hear it at home, but you put it on your TV, you cannot. We think we are now broadcasting in stereo. We were only broadcasting in mono. So if your TV setup picked up a left speaker instead of a right speaker, you may not hear the sound. We think we got that fixed also. And the timing. So you should be to where if you're watching online, I don't know if you've ever watched online, sometimes the movement of the person speaking doesn't match the audio. There's a big delay. It should be close. So we were here yesterday going left hand up. Oh, it's so close. So we should be really close. I'm really pleased with the outcome of that, and I'm real excited to get to make some other little changes that will make that better for those that can't be out, that do watch online on a regular basis. So give us your feedback. Let me know how it went, how it goes. You're not going to hurt my feelings if you say it was terrible. We will work to make it a little bit better. And I also think this new receiver is a little bit crisper, so we should have a little bit more crisp audio. All right, let's jump into lesson 10. So we talked at the end of lesson 9. Lesson 9, if you remember, we put the funnel up here on the board. We talked about evangelism opportunities, an evangelism funnel, how we just move people from that initial conversation through some relationship building, some deeper conversations, how our goal is to get them to where they come to a point in their life to where they have a decision to make. And that decision is simply, is this something I'm interested in? Am I interested in following this, living this way? Is this something that's going to benefit my life? Or their other choice is I want nothing to do with it and walk away. One consistent theme through this book is God gives the increase. The outcome is not our job. I mean, that is not my responsibility. The whole theme of this is committed to spiritual growth. If I'm committed to spiritual growth and being a catalyst, being a spokesperson, being a person that is excited about sharing with others, it is their journey. And my job is just to help them along that and get them to a point that they have the decision to make. What do I want to do with this? And no is a perfectly acceptable answer. Jesus did not convert everybody that he came in contact with. So when we left, I asked you to consider Matthew chapter 25, the parable of the talents, which is verse 14 through 30. And how does that apply in our responsibility to participate in spreading the gospel? So how do we apply that concept? So we're all pretty familiar with the parable of the talents. Summarized, a master went away and he gave servants of his. One he gave 10 talents, one he gave 5 talents, one he gave 3 talents, one he gave 1 talent, I believe is how it's broken up. And he went away on his journey and he came back. And the person with 5 talents went to his master, said, Master, I know you are a great master. You reap where you don't sow, and I have a responsibility. Here's 10 talents. So he gives him the 10 talents. He says, well done, thy good and faithful servant. 3-talent person comes up. Master, you give me 3 talents. I give you 3 more talents. Here's your 6 talents. And then the 1-talent person said, I was afraid, went and hid your talent. I didn't lose it. You didn't lose anything. But here you go. Here's your 1 talent back. And the master was angry because he did nothing with what he was given. Then it comes back down to the fact that, to people whose stuff is given, things are expected. And I think that's a theme that we see in Scripture, and that's something that we can learn from that parable. So how do we apply that to our responsibility that we talked about in chapter 9? If you have talent, use it. I mean, that's a great statement, and that's true. So how else do we apply it?
You're not judged by the quantity of your return, but the intent.
Okay. Yeah, because in there, he told the 1-talent person, you could have went and at least got me interest on my money. You could have went and at least done a little bit. Everybody wasn't required to double. There was no quantitative result. How else? What else does this teach us? Don't be afraid of failure. Okay.
I'm just curious, why would you say that?
For the one who buried his money, he was afraid of losing it. And I think the fear of using what we're given, like in the parable, it keeps us from doing anything. So
Okay.
I guess the example, what would a loss really look like? Would we lose our own soul in the process? Or are we just afraid of quotation marks, losing the conversations that we have or losing the people that we try to talk to? There's really no such thing as losing someone who's already lost or losing someone we're trying to reach. The benefit is in trying to reach them in the first place. If someone lost is never approached, then yeah, that's a loss that was never even tried to, you never even tried to reclaim that.
Okay. Greg, you have a comment?
Yeah, I think the master signal of lack of belief because it was the master who had entrusted the talent to him. I think sometimes we go, well, he's a one-talent guy because he doesn't participate in the public worship. He's a two-talent guy because he can lead singing, and the five-talent guy can preach. And that's not what the message is. It's how much confidence God had in each of his servants. And so the fear was interpreted by the master as, you don't think I know what I'm doing when I give you a talent? Why aren't you using it? Because it was my judgment that you were capable of doing something with what I gave you. I think that's the message.
I agree with you. I think there was confidence in the master that I don't have any concern of you losing this. I'm going to give you something, and I feel you're competent to handle what I've given you, and I think you're the person to give me increase. I really think.
Somebody said it's not on.
Said what's not on?
Your mic.
My lapel mic? It's on.
That's on mine.
So Liz is listening. She says it's on. It might be a left-right channel. Daniel, can you look into that? All right, so Daniel's going to look into that. Thanks for the feedback. I appreciate that. So as we work through this, back to what I was saying, I really think the master said, I can entrust Dan with 3 talents. I can trust Brace with 5 talents. I'm going to give poor Chuck just 1 talent. But I know Chuck's going to handle this talent really well. He's the guy for this part. And I think one of the things that we need to take out of this is that we all have talents. We all have talents in us. And we can even take this to, we can apply this to about any scenario. I may not be given a great measure of talent in a certain area. I'm not good at leading singing. I think leading singing, if you rate it from 1 talent to 5 talents, we have some 5 talent people here that can lead singing. I feel I'm a 1 talent song leader. I can read music. I know what it's supposed to sound like. I know the way it's supposed to go. But somehow my brain, my voice, and my vocals don't make that happen. It is a challenge for me. But if I went and said, well, I'm never going to do that because I don't feel comfortable doing it, then there's an opportunity for me to develop that talent. Yes, Greg.
Part of my point too is that let's not measure this word talent as one's innate abilities.
Okay.
And a talent can be you have an opportunity because of your sphere of influence. If you have 1 friend, if you have 2 friends, or you have 5 friends, that could be considered something God has given you that He's entrusted you to take advantage of that opportunity to share with your friends. Some people have just more social skills or more social range or just whatever their stage of life is. The talents are not necessarily one's abilities as much as these have been granted to you and time is a talent too. You have time to do what I expect you to do. Some people, if they are really, really busy in God's work, they may be tapped out, and that would be God's measure if you've used all the talents that I've given you in the way I expected you to. But if you've got time and you're not using that, I think that's a missed talent, a misapplied talent.
I agree with that. See, I've always looked at this and thought it also could apply to our natural abilities. I really think you can apply it to both. I don't think it is limited to that. I do not think that it is limited to my ability to stand up in front of people, my comfort level for standing up in front of people and talking. Some of us are more natural at that. Some people, it's very natural for them to stand up in front of people. They don't get nervous at all. Well, they work to where they don't. I know very few people that when they have a responsibility getting up in front of people for the first time, for a few times, that they don't have some level of nerves. I think it's completely natural. But there are people that develop that talent very rapidly. And you have some people that are, it's hard, really hard for them. Their natural given talent, their natural given ability is not, it's not easy. But as they do it, the longer they do it, the more comfortable they get, they're developing that talent. So it can apply to so many things. It can apply to our circle of influence. You know, who in my normal life, who do I come in contact with? And that does change and shift over time. You know, if you look at somebody's circle of influence when they're young and new in the faith versus as they've grown and developed and as they've had experiences over time, their reach, if you will expand. So it started at the top of this. Jesus told his apostles, his disciples, to go into all the world and spread the gospel. I mean, that's a generic, that was a specific claim given to these 12 men. And so we can take that and say, how can I spread the gospel in my sphere of influence? What is my opportunity? What is my talent, if you will? What is my ability? And how do I develop that?
Now, come on, think asset. Talents are measures of money. What are my assets? And my assets are not just my abilities. There are all of these things.
Wow.
Anything God has graced me with, anything God has blessed me with, is an asset that can be deployed to gain a return.
Okay.
Stay in the financial context of what he's saying. God distributes blessings to us, assets, gifts, value that can be used in all kind of realms outside of our own innate abilities. Because that sounds like we're limited. You say your brain doesn't wire that way. Well, how can God hold you accountable for what your brain isn't wired in terms of lead singing? But what gifts have you been given? What measures of value, what measures of worth do you have in the time that God has allotted you on this planet? Is there anything more valuable than that?
I'm not sure I see the difference.
Okay, I will push it a bit.
Okay. Yes, Dan.
This goes back to conversation probably at Jeff and Pat Welker's house with Adam King. I think Chuck asked him the question, and this was, I think, before he and Kimberly got married, so it's been a long time ago. But Adam, of course, grew up going over to Hong Kong and into China with his dad preaching the gospel. And Chuck's question was more along the lines of, shouldn't we all want to go? And Adam was like, no, you don't. Not everyone has to go, but if you want to be able, if your ability to participate in the work that we're doing, that his dad was doing, is financial, then work and make a good living and provide and do your job, and you can take the monies, the proceeds from your everyday life, your work, and help support those men who have the desire or the ability or the talent to go to. So somebody's talent may be foreign work.
Mhm.
Your talent is doing your job. There's proceeds from doing your job. So that money, those assets that you have, your asset may not be the ability to go into a foreign country and teach. Your asset may be making money to provide for those who do.
Andrew?
I'll try to take a stab at reconciling what you and Dan maybe you're saying, if I'm hearing you right, because I think your view that it's one's abilities that are the talents fits into what Dan's saying. I think if we view what God gives us as, if you call them opportunities or assets, no one is born able to be good at something other than make cute faces. We're not born with innate abilities, really. They are developed. So if you say, well, I'm good at speaking, I'm not good at song leading, I'm good at talking to my neighbors, I'm not good at writing cards. Those things that we say we're good or not good at, well, we once were not good at any of them. We had to develop what we were good at. And so, but the people in our lives that we generated for ourselves. Time is something that God grants to us. Do with it what you will. So, with that view, I think the talents distributed are the opportunities. Here's the tools. Here's the resources. Here's what you have in your life that is outside of your control. And then the application of one's abilities is the choice that has to happen when those are presented to us. So I think your idea of the talents being abilities or things that we're good at, that fits within this model. It just has to be developed and it has to be applied. I was thinking to myself, would it be fair to say that God gives everyone one, using the analogy from the parable, one more talent than they feel like they can handle? Because if we were given only exactly what we feel like we can handle, I feel like that keeps people in their comfort zones. What is that one talent that God says, I'm going to give you 8 talents, and you thought, oh, I wanted 7.
Right.
I didn't want to be at 8 talent, but I've got 8 now. What do I do with that 8th talent?
And my intention was not to limit this just to your physical abilities. I think this is a universal concept we can apply to, if I've been given sphere of influence, if I've been given, abilities, if I've been given drive. And some of it is I've just been given drive. I've been given drive to say, I want to do good at that. I want to do better at that. And I think when we look at this and when we apply it to what we're talking about, it gives we come to the point that we have to say, I need to do inventory of my talents. What talents, what influence, what assets, what abilities do I have that God has given me that I can develop? Because it comes down to a development. These guys went to work with their talents, at least the 2 did. They went to work with the talents they were given, and they created activity and increase. The one, fear, which is really what he was, condemned and chastised for, was afraid and went and did nothing. That way he didn't lose what he was given. And I feel that in this, applying it to our commitment to outreach, our commitment to, growing spiritually and reaching others, I think we come to the point we have to do that inventory. What talents do I have? And then this ties in really great with the parable of the sower. How do I sow the seed? How do I use the talent that I'm given to give others the opportunity to either let it get cast by the wayside, they're not interested, something comes in and snatches it away from them, or it grows a little bit, or it lands on that good soil and it develops and is very successful. And I think that goes back to the funnel concept we talked about the other day. Not everybody that comes in contact with us, with our message, with the scripture message, with Jesus in general, is going to wind up faithful. It is their choice. God gave us free choice, freedom of choice to follow him or not. And so I think it all ties together. And so, Joy, did you have a question or a comment? All right.
Ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So this may need another Andrew clarification, but these are the things that I was thinking about, is that talents can include things that are natural, different experiences, different study fields, a person's age, they're developed and they've had experiences, and that's, we're talked in the Bible about older women teaching younger women, that kind of thing. But what I was thinking was that all people have value in some
Well, if you remember, we did a lesson on personality types. I mean, we're all wired different. Some people are wired extroverts. Some of it's just natural. Some people are just naturally more introverted and quiet. Having a set of mirror twins, Alicia and Elizabeth, one was always more extroverted, one was more introverted. And watching them grow up from babies, you can see the genetic difference in them. Although they are, DNA chromosomal, if that's even a word, they are identical. But their personalities were completely different. One liked pastels, one liked bold colors. It's fascinating when you get into the genetics of how we are wired. And that does play a part in what we're able to do. Yes, Brace.
It does, but even with those innate abilities, I mean, you can be an extrovert and horrible at talking to people.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can be an extrovert and really good at talking to people. You can be an introvert and really uncomfortable talking to people, but be really good at it. And so those natural abilities still have to be developed to be effective in the kingdom or in other areas of life. And so, I mean, we do have personality differences that are unique to us and maybe seemingly are genetically predisposed, but it's still working on developing, utilizing those abilities in an effective way.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, we all do have to do that. I may be a kid that talked a lot to a lot of people and was an extrovert, or I may be a kid who was really quiet. But I had to grow and learn to utilize that ability to speak or not to speak
Right.
effectively. So
Absolutely.
it's still work.
Yeah, it comes back to developing, and just like Andrew said, what is that one thing that pushes you outside your comfort zone? That's where growth happens. Growth happens when you get outside of your comfort zone. There is a sphere that we are comfortable behaving in, and for a lot of us, it's how comfortable is it to bring up the conversation of religion to other people, their spiritual journey, their spiritual walk. How comfortable is that conversation? It's hard, especially at the beginning. If it's not something that you've grown accustomed to, not a talent you developed, not something that is natural in your makeup, it's a difficult thing.
Aaron, I think something that happens is what you're talking about earlier about, I think we put pressure on ourselves to actually convert people when you said, you saying that's not really our responsibility whether that happens or not. That's true. Because it talks about how, planting the seed, watering the seed, and God giving the increase, that kind of thing. And so I think oftentimes we put too much pressure on ourselves to actually convert someone when that one conversation may down the road lead to another conversation with a totally different person.
Right, absolutely. Yes, Ashley.
Kaylee and I were talking, I think it was yesterday, about this subject in evangelism, and we were just talking about how it's so much better to start kids out early, like start it young, because they don't have that, fear or, the awkwardness, and I mean, sometimes they're the best evangelists among us.
Mm-hmm.
So start it out early, and then they won't have that weird thing that they don't like.
Yeah. I've got a deep memory of being drilled by a 6-year-old about my relationship with Jesus while I was working on her neighbor's air conditioner. I mean, she was like, where do you go to church? She was drilling me on my relationship with Jesus. Yes, Greg.
Maybe an attempt here to synthesize the two accounts of personal responsibility and opportunities. So you have the parable of the sower then, where we could end up fixating on, well, that's rocky soil. Well, that's pretty weedy, so we need to garden hoe out before we start putting seed in the ground. I mean, really, the instruction advises the sower to be indiscriminate about how they sow. And so as we think about, well, there's different personality types, there's different strengths and weaknesses, we're not instructed to really fixate too much on that. We're in fact advised to say, if I just seed ground, I drop seed. That's the advice we're given. So that might help us not get so tied up with how many talents do I have. I think Andrew's right. If we have been gifted and we've been have the opportunity, that just means the field got bigger. It doesn't mean we're any more selective of which was the stony and which was the weedy soil and which was the good soil. It just means the field got bigger. So get out there and work, because the field is bigger.
Yes, Jim.
Yes, one thing really impressed me about this story, that one talent man, he told God what he thought about him, and God judged him accordingly. It didn't turn out well for the one talent man.
That's true. That's very true.
One, it's interesting that he's called lazy and wicked. I think that.
Yeah.
I was trying
Yeah.
to remember, how much money is a talent?
8,000 denarii.
It's like a big chunk of
It's a
gold,
big
isn't
chunk
it?
of money.
Yeah, a talent is a lot of money. I think sometimes we say, I'm a one talent person in this area, and we picture, I have one gold coin.
Right.
I have one little thing. If you have one talent, you have a fortune. So don't sell yourself short and think, I have one coin, that's all I got. I think it's a good idea, like you said, Aaron, to do a personal inventory of our talents, but don't be stingy.
Right.
God has given you, like, I think it's like more than a year's wage or something. I was trying to look it up. There were crowns described where the weight of the crown was 1 talent, or the base of the pillars of the tabernacle were a talent each. It's a chunk of money. It's a talent. It's not pennies.
Back to Greg's financial analysis. I mean, your net worth is very, very high, in the realm of the talents that God's given you. He has given us a lot of opportunity, a lot of innate abilities, a lot of assets at our disposal to go out and help people and reach people. Yes, Bryce.
Greg's right. Our job, according to Matthew 13, is to sow the seed and not inspect the soil. And you know why? Because as good as we think we are at reading people, we are terrible soil inspectors.
Valid.
I mean, if we look at examples in Scripture of people who were converted to the Lord, there are people we would look at and say there's not a chance they would ever obey the gospel. And they did. And not only did they became great assets in the kingdom. And then there are other people we look at and say, oh, that would be the perfect person to talk to, who have no interest whatsoever.
Right.
And so, I mean, that's the reason why we're not supposed to inspect the soil, because we're terrible at it.
Right.
We are horrible at it.
Well, and on top of that, it kind of reminds me of like back in the days of the prophets, they had to say, they had to give Israel the message, whether Israel was going to listen or not. And the same thing's true with us. We have to tell people about the Lord, whether they will listen or not. It's totally up to them.
Yeah. Yeah, because one of the things we see in here is, Paul planted, Apollos watered, and God gives the increase. Doesn't matter who plants and waters. It is our job to plant and water. God will give us the increase as people accept what he wants. Which gives us a great segue in the last 9 minutes to talk about lesson 10. And at the top, it talks about going to all the world. And I put in there, the disciples had a job to take it to the world. Nehemiah, which we've talked about in the study, he had a job to do what he could where he was. And so whether our opportunity takes us globally, nationally, interstates, wherever we have influence, doesn't matter. We have an obligation to do what we can where we are. Back in Nehemiah's day, they were concerned about the wall that was in front of them. That's your focus. And it's somebody else's focus to work on the other sections. And I think we can take that concept into this next discussion in how do we create opportunities. There's a couple different ways. I like the special sermon section. And I think that's something that would be helpful. I remember when we had Don Patton come for a week. It's been a while. Anybody remember how long ago that's been?
20+ years.
It's been 20 years?
No, I was here.
Yeah. I was thinking 10 years. I was thinking about 10 years. I didn't think it was 20 years. Yeah. So Brace was here, so it was under 15 years. Ashley was here. So it's under 10. Okay, so we're whittling it down.
I was in charge of filming him, so it was.
Yeah. So you're 26, 27-ish. We can move on. I guess you're a week younger than my oldest, so I know how old you are, if I can remember how old they are. Because in my mind, they're still like 22. But if you look at opportunities like that we've set up in the past, some opportunities to reach out to people in the community to give them a taste of what we do and how the gospel can change our lives. I think there's some great opportunities in that going forward. You know, the four of us have talked about our theme for next year. And I don't know if we've publicly shared it yet. So those of you in class, if you've not heard it yet, the theme that we're looking at is Stronger Together. Because we are stronger together. When we're in assembly, when we're socially together, when we're connected, Scripture talks about, the children of God being stronger when they're together. And so when we look at this, how can we take that theme and do we take on a regular basis on, a certain part of the month, a certain service, do we focus it on that one phrase? Or do we have short meetings? Do we stay with week-long meetings? And how can we make our meetings more effective? Because if we all are committed to what we talked about in chapter 9, we're all committed to helping others and giving people opportunities, building that relationship with them, planting that seed, sowing the seed. How do we as a congregation give opportunities for that? And it's changed so much in the last 50 years, 60 years. Now you hear about the old, 2-week-long meetings and, packed tents. Now if we have a week-long gospel meeting, 50% of our people show up? Yes, Bryce.
I'm just going to say this, and we can all disagree with me. It's okay. But one of the things that I've always been a little uncomfortable with is I think we tend to want to put the responsibility for teaching on someone else. I'll invite them to services, and then we'll have a special sermon series, or the preacher will preach a lesson, or whatever it is.
Right.
And our excuse is, I'm not good at talking to people about the truth. Okay? So you're not good at it. I'm not good at golf. Guess why?
You don't do it.
I don't play enough. So if you're not good at talking to people about the truth, most of us know somebody outside of these four walls. And so if we're not good at talking to people about the truth, talk to people about the truth. Because the more you do it, typically the better we get at it. I'm not saying it's wrong to invite people to services. I'm just saying if that's the only thing we feel is our talent, is that we can invite people to services so that they can be exposed to all of this. This is good.
Right.
But we still have a responsibility individually to sow seed ourselves by speaking truth into the lives of other people. And if we're not good at it, work at it.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to that funnel we put on here. Inviting people to church does not, the first time, if that's the first invitation, that's hard. Yeah. My wife is the exception to the rule. She got invited to a Wednesday night Bible study with Penny McCourt Gates at that time, and she went. She showed up in this building. And then through some further conversation, Penny got her to come back. Because believe it or not, to a young person, a high schooler, a Wednesday night adult Bible class is not that engaging. that knows nothing about Scripture. It didn't connect with her. But Penny did get her to come back to a gospel meeting and then she's like, okay, I want to be part of this. And so the rest is history. But it all started way up here. They had a connection. And Angie knew Penny had a religious foundation. And she was, deep in her mind looking for this. So they built that relationship, had some conversations, built a relationship, and then it walks right down through that. But yeah, our totality of our service as, children of God outreach should not be giving somebody a flyer saying, hey, we're having a meeting, come to church. If that's the totality of what we're doing, I think we need to investigate let's go back to our asset list and say, what talents do I have that may have gone covered, I may have not looked at, and how can I develop them? Because there's people here that are good at talking to people about spiritual stuff. Troy, did you have a comment?
Oh, I was going to say that what struck me about your story about Penny and Angie is that Penny had a heart for Angie's soul. She saw, and it's general knowledge of the value of the soul. And for me, the reality of what hell would be like. So it motivates me probably to a greater degree than it should.
Yeah, because there's so many different places that you come from. People in the church. Whether there's some people that had, a small religious foundation, or some people that grew up in the church. There's a different path every one of us have taken to get here. But it comes down to somebody had that initial conversation. And there was something that piqued your interest. And so how can I be out there sowing the seed? I like the fishing analogy. When we go fishing, how many people go fishing with one fishing pole? I don't. I like 3 fishing poles. I want one here, one here, one here. Why would I want 3 fishing poles? I got more chance to catch fish. And it's really kind of fun when this one hits and that one hits and you're scrambling. But if we take that analogy of sowing seed and the analogy of fishing, our job is to spread information, create opportunities, and see if there's some interest. All right, again, I will be gone on Wednesday, so someone wants to take over. We can finish evangelism opportunities, or we can jump into the last section, talks about edification. And committed to our spiritual growth, we're going to finish up with how do we edify one another, how do we encourage one another, how do we grow in hospitality, grow in love. And then we're going to wrap this up with a little bow at the end of the month, and then we're going to turn it over to Andrew 1st of January. So if you're interested in teaching class, let me know, and you have choices on where you go with this on Wednesday. Thank you for your conversations. We'll gather again shortly.